The cantina on Taylor 7 was loud with celebration. Soldiers from a dozen different species crowded around tables, drinking and laughing about their recent victory over the pirate raiders. The air smelled like alcohol and the sweet smoke that the Vrelian soldiers enjoyed after battle. In the corner of the room, Captain Hyan Woo Kim sat alone at a small table. He was human, which made him unusual here. His dark hair was cut short in military style, and his brown eyes watched the room quietly. He wore the standard coalition uniform, nothing special, nothing that stood out. He sipped his drink slowly and said nothing to anyone. Near the center of the cantina, a group of young Vrelian soldiers stood together. The Vrelians looked like large insects that walked on two legs. They had hard shells covering their bodies like armor, and their eyes were huge and dark. Their arms were strong, much stronger than human arms. These particular Vrelians were young warriors, fresh from their first real battles. They were loud and proud. "Did you hear what the humans claim?" One Vrelian named Vex said loudly. His voice clicked and buzzed in the way Vrelians spoke. "They say their ancestors hunted by walking. Just walking, for days and days until the animal fell down." The other Vrelians laughed. The sound was like chittering, high and sharp. "Walking," another Vrelian named Kess said, slapping the table. "We Vrelians can run at 40 kilometers per hour. We have strength 3 times what humans have. And they think walking is impressive?" Vex nodded and took a long drink. "I read their file before they arrived. Humans have no natural armor. Their bones break easily. They have no claws, no venom, no weapons built into their bodies. They are so weak. They call their planet a death world," Kess added, making the clicking sound that meant Vrelian laughter. "They say it made them strong. But look at them. They're small and soft." A third Vrelian joined in. "I heard they keep predators as pets. They call them dogs. Who would want a predator living in their home?" "Humans make up stories to feel important," Vex said firmly. "They tell myths about hunting giant animals until they died from exhaustion. They say they can track prey for days without stopping. All lies to make themselves sound dangerous." The Vrelians laughed again, louder this time. Some of them looked over at Hyan Woo, sitting alone in his corner. He did not look dangerous. He looked tired, maybe a little thin. Just another soft human. Across the room, sitting at a different table, an old Vrelian watched everything in silence. This was Commander Talix, a war hero known throughout the coalition forces. Talix had fought in more battles than most soldiers had seen in their entire lives. His shell was scarred and marked from decades of combat. He was drinking alone, and his large eyes were focused on the human captain in the corner. Talix said nothing while the young soldiers laughed and boasted. He just watched Hyan Woo with an expression that was hard to read. "Maybe we should ask the human about his myths," Kess suggested, waving toward Hyan Woo. "Maybe he can tell us a good story to make us laugh." "Yes," Vex agreed. "Human, Captain, come tell us about your great hunting stories." Hyan Woo looked up from his drink. For a moment, his eyes met Vex's across the cantina. Then he simply raised his glass slightly in a small salute and went back to his drink. He did not smile. He did not speak. He just sat there, quiet and calm. "See?" Vex said to his friends. "He has nothing to say because he knows it is all lies." The Vrelians laughed again and returned to their own conversations, already forgetting about the human in the corner. The celebration continued for another hour. More drinks were poured, more stories were told. The Vrelians talked about their strength, their speed, their natural weapons. They talked about how the coalition was lucky to have warriors like them. They were the future of the military, they said. Strong and fierce. Hyan Woo finished his drink and stood up to leave. As he walked toward the exit, He passed by Commander Talix's table. The old Relian looked up at him. "Captain Kim," Talix said quietly. His voice was different from the young Relian's. Deeper and rougher. Hyun-woo stopped and nodded respectfully. "Commander." "They are young," Talix said. "They do not know better yet." Hyun-woo's expression did not change. "Everyone is young once, sir. They'll learn." "Yes," Talix said slowly. "They will learn. Sooner than they think, perhaps." There was something in the old commander's voice that sounded almost like a warning, or maybe like sadness. But Hyun-woo just nodded again and left the cantina. Outside, the night air of Talos 7 was cold and thin. The planet's 3 moons hung in the sky like silver coins. Hyun-woo walked slowly back toward the human barracks, his hands in his pockets. Behind him, he could still hear the sounds of celebration from the cantina. He did not look angry about what the Vrelians had said. He did not look upset. He just looked like a man walking home after a long day, thinking about things that no one else could see. In the human barracks, other soldiers were getting ready for sleep. Lieutenant Yuna Park was checking equipment for the next day. She looked up when Hyun-woo entered. "How was the party, Captain?" she asked. "Loud," Hyun-woo said simply. "The Vrelians giving you trouble?" "Just talk," Hyun-woo said. He sat down on his bunk and started taking off his boots. "Young soldiers always talk." Yuna nodded and went back to her work. She had served with Hyun-woo long enough to know when something was on his mind. But she also knew he would talk about it when he was ready. Or maybe not at all. The barracks grew quiet as the soldiers settled in for the night. Tomorrow would bring new duties, new challenges. For now, the humans slept, breathing slowly and steadily in the dark, while outside the Vrelian soldiers continued their celebration, never knowing that everything was about to change. The alarm woke everyone at dawn. Not the gentle morning alarm, but the sharp emergency signal that meant real trouble. Soldiers scrambled from their bunks, grabbing weapons and gear. In the human barracks, Hyun-woo was dressed and ready in under 2 minutes. Around him, his soldiers moved with quick efficiency. No wasted motion. In the briefing room, Commander Talix stood before a hologram display showing a distant space station. His voice was serious and calm. "Korath Station is under attack," Talix said. "The Krethic swarm hit them 6 hours ago. They came in large numbers, too many for the station's small security force. We are going to help." The hologram showed Korath Station, a mining colony built into an asteroid. It looked like a metal city carved into rock. Red markers showed where the Krethic had broken through. "The Krethic are a hive mind species," Talix continued. "They attack in waves. They are fast and vicious. They do not stop until they are all dead or until they win. We need to break the siege and clear the station." Vex raised his hand. "Commander, my squad can handle this easily. The Krethic are strong, but Vrelians are stronger." Talix looked at the young soldier. "Strength alone does not win long battles. But you will have your chance to prove yourself." He gestured to the hologram. "All squads will deploy together. Vrelian forces will form the main assault line. Human forces will provide support and hold the perimeter." Hyun-woo said nothing. Yuna, standing beside him, checked her rifle quietly. "Any questions?" Talix asked. Kes spoke up. "How many Krethic are we facing, Commander?" "Unknown. Maybe hundreds. Maybe thousands. The Krethic do not attack in small numbers." Talix's eyes swept across the room. "This will not be easy. Prepare yourselves." The transport ship arrived at Kara Station 3 hours later. Through the windows, the soldiers could see the station. Parts of it were dark, power cut off. Small shapes moved across the surface like insects, too many to count. "The Krethic. They look like giant beetles," Vex said, watching through the window. "This will be simple. The ship docked and the doors opened. Immediately, the sound of battle filled the air. Weapons fire, screaming, the strange clicking sounds that Krethik made when they attacked. "Move out," Talix ordered. The Vrelian soldiers charged forward. They were impressive to watch. Their strong legs carried them at incredible speed. Their arms, powerful and quick, swung weapons with deadly accuracy. When they hit Krethik's soldiers, the enemy fell like broken toys. The humans moved differently. They did not charge. They walked forward in careful formation, rifles ready, eyes scanning everything. When Krethik attacked them, they fired in controlled bursts. Not wild, not rushed. Just steady and accurate. The first wave of Krethik came fast. There were so many of them that they looked like a black tide pouring down the corridors. The Vrelians met them head-on, and it was brutal. Vrelian strength against Krethik numbers. For an hour, the battle was fierce. Then the second wave came. And the third. And the fourth. The Vrelians fought magnificently. Vex personally killed 24 Krethik in the first 3 hours. Kesh fought with such skill that other soldiers stopped to watch. The Vrelian warriors were everything they had claimed to be. Strong and fierce and deadly. But after 6 hours, something started to change. The Vrelians began to slow down. Their movements became less sharp. Their breathing grew heavy. This was normal, of course. 6 hours of intense combat would tire anyone. Commander Talix ordered a rotation. Half the Vrelian soldiers fell back to rest, while fresh soldiers took their place. This was standard military procedure. Soldiers needed rest to fight effectively, but the humans did not rotate. "Captain Kim," Talix called over the radio. "Do you not need to rest your soldiers?" "Not yet, Commander," Hyan-Wu replied calmly. His voice did not sound tired. "We're good for now." 12 hours into the battle, the Krethik were finally starting to thin out. The coalition forces had killed hundreds, maybe thousands. Bodies littered the corridors. The air smelled like blood and chemicals. The Vrelians had rotated 3 times now. Each soldier had fought for 6 hours, rested for 6 hours, fought again. This was proper military doctrine. It kept soldiers fresh and effective. The humans still had not rotated. Vex noticed this during his second rest period. He watched the human soldiers through the window of the rest area. They were still fighting. The same soldiers who had started the battle 12 hours ago were still out there, still moving, still shooting. Why are they not resting? Vex asked another Vrelian. Maybe humans are too stupid to know they need rest, the other soldier joked. But Vex was not laughing. He was watching Lieutenant Yuna Park. She had been fighting for 12 straight hours. She should be exhausted. She should barely be able to stand. But she was still moving with the same careful, controlled efficiency she had shown at the beginning. Her shots were still accurate. Her movements were still precise. 18 hours. 20 hours. 24 hours. The Vrelians watched with growing confusion and something that might have been concern. The humans kept fighting. They did not rotate out. They did not rest. They just continued, hour after hour after hour. "This is not normal," Cass said quietly. She had been watching the humans too. No species can fight for this long without rest. "Maybe they are using drugs," Vex suggested. "Stimulants to keep them awake." But Talix, sitting nearby, shook his head slowly. "No drugs. This is what humans do. This is what they are." The young Vrelians looked at their commander with confusion. "Just watch," Talix said, "and learn." At the 30-hour mark, the Krethik stopped coming. The last wave had been small, just a few dozen. The coalition had won. Korath Station was secure. The Vrelian soldiers were celebrating, those who had energy left to celebrate. Most were simply lying down, exhausted from multiple 6-hour combat rotations. The humans walked back to the base area. 30 hours of continuous combat. No rotation, no rest. Hyam Wu's face was covered in dust and dried blood, though none of it seemed to be his own. He walked slowly but steadily, like a man coming home from a long day of work. "Captain Kim," Talek said. "Your report?" "Station is secure, Commander. All Krethik eliminated. We had 2 wounded, no casualties. Both wounded are already treated and mobile. And your soldiers? When will they need rest?" Hyam Wu looked at his people. They looked tired, yes. Very tired. But they were all standing, all conscious, all functional. "We could use some water and food, sir. And maybe 4 hours of sleep. Then we'll be ready for whatever comes next." 4 hours of sleep. After 30 hours of combat, Vex heard this and could not believe it. "That is impossible," he said out loud. Hyan Wu looked at the young Relian. For the first time, there was something in the human captain's eyes. Not anger, not pride. Something else. Something that made Vex uncomfortable. "It's just what we do," Hyan Wu said simply. Then he walked away to check on his soldiers. The celebration did not last long. 3 hours after the siege ended, the sensors picked up movement deep inside Korath Station. The Krethik had not all been killed. Some had escaped into the mining tunnels that ran through the asteroid like wormholes. Hundreds of tunnels, maybe thousands, all dark and twisting and perfect places to hide. "If they get time to regroup," Commander Talek said, studying the tunnel maps, "they will call for reinforcements. We cannot let that happen. We have to hunt them down now." He divided the forces into hunting parties. Each party would enter the tunnels from different points and sweep through, finding and eliminating any remaining Krethik. "These tunnels are narrow," Talek warned. "Stay alert. The Krethik know we are coming. They will fight hard." The Vrelian squads entered the tunnels with confidence. They were still the strongest, still the fastest. Yes, they were tired from the battle, but they were warriors. They would finish this quickly. But the tunnels were not made for Vrelian bodies. The Vrelians were large, with their thick shells and strong limbs. In the tight spaces, they had to move carefully. They could not use their speed. Their size, which was an advantage in open combat, became a problem here. Vex's squad pushed into Tunnel 7. The walls were close, the ceiling low. Vex's shell scraped against rock as he moved. Behind him, his squad mates struggled to move in formation. "This is miserable," one of them complained. They found Krethik after 20 minutes. A small group, maybe 6 of them, waiting in a dark corner. The fight was quick and brutal. The Vrelians won, but it took effort. In these tight spaces, the Krethik could attack from any direction. The Vrelians had to work hard for each kill. After 2 hours in the tunnels, Vex's squad found another group. And another. Each fight was hard. Each fight took energy. The tunnels seemed to go on forever, branching and splitting, going up and down. After 4 hours, Vex called for a break. His squad was tired. The tunnels were hot, and the air was bad. They needed rest. They came back to the main station and reported what they had found. Other Vrelian squads were coming back too, with similar stories. The tunnels were difficult. The Krethik were everywhere. This was going to take time. "Where are the human squads?" Cass asked. Talek checked his display. "Still in the tunnels? Still? They've been down there for 6 hours. "Yes," Talek said. The Vrelian squads rested, ate, and went back into the tunnels. It was hard work. The close spaces, the constant alertness, the fighting, all of it wore them down. Each squad could manage about 6 to 8 hours before they had to come back out. But the humans did not come back. 12 hours passed. 16 hours. 20 hours. "This is wrong," Vex said, checking the tracking display. "Squad Bravo has been in the tunnels for 22 hours straight. Why have they not returned? Maybe they are lost, Kess suggested. But the tracking data showed Squad Bravo moving with purpose, not wandering. They were following something, hunting something. Talix was watching the displays carefully. His old eyes moved from one squad marker to another. All the human squads were still down there, still moving, still hunting. Captain Kim, Talix called over the radio. Status report. Hyan Wu's voice came back, slightly distorted by the rock between them. Still tracking, Commander? We found a large group, maybe 50 Krethik. They are moving toward the lower levels. We are following. You have been active for 40 hours, Captain. Your squad needs rest. There was a pause. Then Hyan Wu spoke again. We will rest when the hunt is finished, Commander. These Krethik are not going to stop moving, so neither can we. 40 hours. The number seemed impossible to Vex. He could barely manage 8 hours in these tunnels before exhaustion forced him out. How were the humans still going? I want to see this, Vex said. He checked his gear and entered the tunnels again, following the tracking marker for one of the human squad's dot. It took him an hour to find them. Squad Bravo, led by Sergeant Jinho Choi. They were moving through a narrow tunnel, their movements slow but steady. Vex watched from a distance, staying quiet. The humans moved differently than Vrellians. They did not rush. They walked carefully, checking every shadow, every corner. Their eyes constantly scanned the environment. One soldier knelt down and examined the floor, looking at something Vex could not see. Dust pattern, the soldier whispered. Something moved through here recently. Going left. They turned left and continued. Vex followed, fascinated despite himself. The humans were tracking. Actually tracking like ancient hunters following prey. They looked at scratches on walls, at disturbed dust, at tiny signs that Vex would never have noticed. And they did this while carrying full combat gear, while tired, while in total darkness except for their small lights. After 2 more hours, they found the Krethik. A group of 20, hiding in a side chamber. The humans did not charge in. They positioned themselves carefully, set up crossfire, and then attacked with brutal efficiency. The fight was over in 30 seconds. Then they continued moving. Still tracking. Still hunting. Vex tried to keep up, but after 4 hours, he was exhausted. His legs hurt. His breathing was heavy. He had to go back. The humans kept going. 50 hours. 60 hours. 70 hours. The Vrellian soldiers stopped asking questions. They just watched the tracking displays in amazement and something close to fear. 72 hours after entering the tunnels, the human squads began emerging. They came back one by one, reporting that their sections were clear. Every Krethik found. Every Krethik eliminated. They looked terrible. Their faces were covered in dust and sweat. Their eyes were red and tired. Their movements were slow. But they were all walking. All conscious. All functional. Lieutenant Una Park came back with her squad and walked directly to the water station. She drank 4 full bottles without stopping. Then she sat down against the wall and closed her eyes. Lieutenant, Talix said, approaching her. How many Krethik did you eliminate? Una opened one eye. 47, Commander. We tracked them through 6 levels. They kept trying to circle back, but we stayed on them. She closed her eye again. They got tired before we did. You were in the tunnels for 72 hours. Yes, sir, without rest. We took a few short breaks. Maybe 10 minutes here and there. But if we stopped for real rest, we would have lost the trail. She said this like it was the most obvious thing in the world. Sergeant Jinho Choi reported to Hyan Wu. Section cleared, Captain. 63 Krethik eliminated. No casualties on our side. Good work, Jinho. Get your people some food and water. You have 4 hours to sleep before next assignment. Jinho nodded and walked away, moving like a man who had been awake for 3 days straight, which he had. Vex watched all of this in stunned silence. Cass stood next to him, equally quiet. "They really did it," Cass finally said. "The myths, the persistence hunt. It is all real." 3 days, Vex whispered. They hunted for 3 days without stopping. Commander Talix walked past them. He had been watching everything with his usual unreadable expression. But now, there was something else in his eyes. Something like memory. "Come," he said to the young Relians. "There is something you need to know. Something I should have told you before." That evening, after the humans had rested and the station was fully secured, Talix called a meeting in the cantina. All the soldiers gathered, Relian and human alike. The old commander stood at the front of the room, his scarred shell catching the light. Vex and Kess sat near the front, still trying to process what they had witnessed over the past 3 days. The humans sat quietly at the back of the room, drinking water and eating. They looked exhausted but alert. "I need to tell you all a story," Talix began. His voice was quiet, but everyone listened. "It is a story from 30 years ago, before most of you were born, before humans were part of the coalition." He activated a hologram display. It showed a planet, green and blue, with a mountain range highlighted. "This is Hemlock Ridge on the world of Viris 3. 30 years ago, humans were at war with the Zathan Concordat. The coalition was just observing, deciding whether to get involved. I was part of the observation team." Talix looked around the room. The humans were losing badly. The Zathan had better weapons, better ships, better technology. We expected the humans to surrender within weeks. But they did not. The hologram changed to show a tactical map. Red markers showed Zathan forces. Blue markers showed human forces. One particular battle caught our attention. A human unit, about 200 soldiers, was cut off in the mountains. The Zathan sent their elite hunters after them. The Zathan are predators, you understand. They are faster than humans, stronger than humans. They have claws and night vision. They are perfect hunters. Vex leaned forward, listening intently. The Zathan chased the humans into the mountains. They expected to catch them in a few days. We watched from orbit, recording everything. Talix's voice grew quieter. What we saw changed my understanding of what humans are. The hologram began showing a timeline. Day 1, the humans ran. They abandoned heavy equipment, took only weapons and basic supplies, and ran. The Zathan pursued at full speed. By the end of Day 1, the Zathan had closed half the distance. Day 2 and 3, the humans kept running. They did not stop to rest properly. They would run for hours, stop for maybe 30 minutes, then run again. The Zathan rotated their troops, using fresh hunters. The humans had no rotation. They just kept moving. Day 4, 5, 6, 7, the humans slowed to a fast walk. But they never stopped. Not really. The Zathan were still using fresh troops in rotation, but they started to tire. Even fresh Zathan soldiers found it hard to maintain pursuit for days without real rest. Talix paused and looked directly at Vex. "You asked me once how I got this scar on my shell. I got it on Day 8, when I went down to the planet's surface to see what was happening up close. The hologram showed rough terrain, steep rocks, freezing temperatures. By Day 8, the Zathan elite hunters were exhausted. They were making mistakes. Some had collapsed from exhaustion. Some had gotten injured trying to move too fast over difficult terrain. They were predators, yes, but even predators need rest. The humans were in bad condition too. They were dehydrated, hungry, sleep-deprived. Some were injured, but they were all still moving, all still functional. And then, on Day 12, they stopped running. The room was completely silent. They turned around and fought. The Zathan elites, exhausted and broken, could barely defend themselves. The humans moved through them like they were nothing. It was not even a fair fight. The prey had become the predator. Talix's eyes grew distant, remembering. I went down during the battle. I wanted to understand. I needed to see these humans up close. That is when I met Sergeant Daeyoung Lim. He touched a control, and the hologram showed a picture. A human man, covered in dirt and blood, carrying another soldier on his back. Daeyoung was carrying a wounded soldier. The wounded man had been shot 6 hours earlier. Daeyoung had been carrying him through a blizzard, through the mountains, for all 6 hours. When I found them, Daeyoung was still moving, still carrying his friend. He had not eaten in 2 days. He had not slept properly in 12 days. But he would not leave his friend behind. Talix looked at Hyun Woo across the room. That wounded soldier he was carrying eventually became a captain. Maybe you know him. Hyun Woo's expression did not change, but he nodded slowly once. I asked Daeyoung how he could do this. Talix continued. How he could keep moving when his body should have given up. He looked at me with eyes that had not slept in 12 days and said something I will never forget. He said, "This is what humans do. We do not give up. We do not stop. We just keep going until the job is done, or we are dead. That is what our ancestors did for millions of years. That is what made us human." The old commander's voice grew stronger. I did not believe him at first. I thought it was just one man, one exceptional soldier. But then I watched the rest of the battle. I watched 200 humans who had been running for 12 days, straight turn around and defeat 500 Zathan elite hunters. Not because humans were stronger, not because they were faster, but because they simply would not stop. Tess spoke up quietly. "Commander, why did you not tell us this before?" "Because you needed to see it yourselves," Talix said. "If I had just told you, you would not have believed me. You would have thought I was exaggerating. You would have thought humans were telling myths to make themselves sound impressive." He gestured to the human soldiers at the back of the room. "But now you have seen it. You watched them fight for 30 hours straight. You watched them hunt through tunnels for 3 days without real rest. You watched them do something that should be impossible. And that was not even them at their limit. That was just humans doing their job." Vex felt something cold in his stomach. Fear? Respect? Both? The myths are not myths, Talix said firmly. Humans evolved as persistent predators on a planet that tried to kill them every day. Heavy gravity made their bones strong. Temperature extremes made them adaptable. Predators everywhere made them clever. And the need to hunt animals faster than them made them develop the most terrifying ability in the galaxy. They simply do not stop. He looked around at all the soldiers. Humans hunted animals by walking after them for days until the animal died from exhaustion. They hunted in packs, working together, never giving up. They turned wolves into dogs through patience and persistence. They spread across their entire planet by simply walking until there was nowhere left to go. And then, Talix said, his voice almost a whisper, they came to space. And they brought that same persistence with them. The cantina was absolutely silent. Even the humans were quiet, listening to the old commander speak. "Every story you have heard is true," Talix said. And probably an understatement. Humans are not the strongest species. They are not the fastest. They do not have natural weapons or armor. But they have something more dangerous than all of those things combined. They have the ability to just keep going, long after every other species has given up and gone home. He turned off the hologram. So when you see a human, remember this. Remember that their weakness is their strength. Remember that they are persistence made flesh. And be very, very glad that they choose to be our friends. After Talix finished speaking, The cantina remained quiet for a long moment. Then Vex stood up slowly. He looked across the room at Captain Heian Wu. "Captain Kim," Vex said, and his voice was different now, respectful. "Is it all true? Everything the commander said?" Heian Wu was quiet for a moment, looking at his empty cup. Then he stood up and walked to the front of the room. He moved slowly, still tired from the 3 days of hunting. When he reached the front, he turned to face everyone. "Yes," he said simply. "It is all true, but I think you deserve to understand why." He gestured to Talix, who brought up a new hologram. It showed a planet, Earth. "This is where humans come from," Heian Wu said. "Earth. We call it home, but honestly, it is a nightmare planet. 1G gravity, which is higher than most species prefer. Temperature swings from -40 to +50 degrees. Hurricanes, earthquakes, volcanoes. 1,000 ways to die every single day." The hologram zoomed in to show various scenes from Earth. Deserts, jungles, frozen, tundras. Humans evolved in this environment. Heian Wu continued. "We were not the strongest animal. We were not the fastest. We could not fly. We had no venom, no claws, no natural armor. By all rights, we should have died out. But we had a few advantages that turned out to be enough." He pointed to his own head. "First, we are clever. We make tools. We plan. We work together. But many species do this. What made humans special was something else." The hologram changed to show ancient humans running across plains. "We lost our fur and developed the ability to sweat. Do you know what that means?" Heian Wu looked around the room. "It means we have the best cooling system in the galaxy. Most animals cool down by panting or by stopping to rest. Humans cool down while they move. We can run or walk for hours and not overheat." Cass made a clicking sound of surprise. "That is why you do not need rest like we do." "Partly," Heian Wu agreed. "But there is more. Earth's atmosphere is rich in oxygen. Very rich. This gives us endurance. Our hearts and lungs are built to process oxygen efficiently. We can keep going for days on limited rest." He took a breath. It took a breath. "But the real key is how we hunted. Most predators are ambush hunters or sprint hunters. They hide and pounce, or they chase prey in short, fast bursts. Humans are different. Humans are persistence hunters." The hologram showed a group of ancient humans following an animal across open ground. Our ancestors would pick an animal, usually something big and fast like an antelope. Then they would start walking after it. The antelope would run away, very fast. The humans would follow, walking or jogging, tracking the footprints. The antelope would run again. The humans would follow again. Over and over, for hours. "The antelope is much faster," Heian Wu said. "But it cannot cool down while running. After a few hours, it starts to overheat. It needs to rest. But the humans do not stop. They just keep following. The antelope runs again, overheats more, rests again. The humans keep coming." He made a walking gesture with his fingers. "After 6 hours, 8 hours, the antelope is exhausted. It cannot run anymore. Its body is breaking down from overheating. The humans walk up to it and kill it with simple weapons. No special strength needed. No speed needed. Just the ability to never, ever stop." The room was completely silent. "This is what humans did for 2 million years," Heian Wu said quietly. "We hunted animals to death by walking after them. We became the most terrifying predator on Earth, not through strength, but through persistence. Nothing could escape us. If we decided to hunt something, it would die. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but eventually, because we would never stop following." Lieutenant Yuna spoke up from the back. We also learned to work together. A human alone is dangerous. A group of humans is unstoppable. We share the work. We take turns. We support each other. That is why we never leave wounded behind. That is part of what makes us human. Hyan Wu nodded. And we learned to bond. Not just with other humans, but with other species. We took wolves, dangerous predators, and made them our friends. We turned them into dogs. Now dogs are everywhere humans go, even in space. He smiled slightly. If you visit the human fleet, you will see dogs on many ships, living with soldiers, working with us. That should have been your first warning that humans are different. What other species brings predators along as pets? Cass spoke up. So all of this, the endurance, the persistence, it is all just evolution? Just biology? Yes, Hyan Wu said. Nothing special. Nothing magical. Just a species that evolved on a difficult planet and learned to survive by never giving up. Earth made us this way. The heavy gravity made our bones strong. The temperature extremes made us adaptable. The dangerous animals made us clever. And the need to hunt made us persistent. He looked around at all the soldiers, human and alien alike. The myths you heard are not exaggerations. We really did hunt animals to extinction through persistence. We really do track prey for days. We really do bond with predators. This is just what humans are. It is our nature. Vex stood up again. Captain, if humans are this capable, why do you need the coalition? Why not fight alone? Hyan Wu's expression became serious. Because being able to survive does not mean we want to survive alone. Humans learned something important thousands of years ago. The strongest pack is not the biggest or the strongest. It is the most diverse. Different species bring different strengths. Working together, we are all stronger. He gestured to Talix. Relians are stronger than humans. In a straight fight, a Relian beats a human every time. But humans can keep going when Relians need rest. Together, we cover each other's weaknesses. That is why the coalition works. Plus, Yuna added with a tired smile, fighting alone is lonely. Humans do not like being alone. We are pack animals. We want friends, allies, partners. Even if we could win wars by ourselves, why would we want to? Talix stepped forward. The humans joined the coalition not because they needed us, but because they wanted us. That is important to remember. They could have been conquerors. Instead, they chose to be friends. Hyan Wu nodded. We learned a long time ago that the best way to survive is to help others survive too. That is the real human trait. Not just persistence, but cooperation. Not just strength, but kindness. Vex was quiet for a moment. Then he walked forward and stood before Hyan Wu. Captain, I apologize for mocking you and your soldiers. I was ignorant and arrogant. What I have seen over these past days has taught me respect. No apology needed, Hyan Wu said, extending his hand. You are young. Everyone is young once. What matters is that you learn and grow. Vex looked at the human hand, then grasped it. Hyan Wu's grip was not strong like Avrelian's, but it was firm and steady. Captain, Vex said, I would like to request a transfer to human-led units. I want to learn from you. I want to understand what true persistence means. Several other young Vrelians stood up, echoing the request. Talix looked at them with his unreadable expression. I will approve these transfers. But I warn you, training with humans means you will learn what your body can really do. It will not be comfortable. After what I have seen, Commander, Vex said, I do not think I will ever be comfortable again. But I want to try. That night, as the soldiers dispersed, Hyan Wu and Talix sat together at a table, sharing a drink. The old Relian looked at the human captain with respect that came from decades of experience. Your species terrifies me, Captain, Talek said quietly. Hyan Wu smiled slightly. Good. We terrify ourselves sometimes too. That is why we try very hard to be friends first and enemies never. Wise words, Talek said. They sat in comfortable silence for a while. Two old warriors who understood each other despite being from different worlds. Outside, the stars shone bright in the darkness of space. Ships moved between them, carrying soldiers from 100 different species. And on those ships, humans worked alongside their alien friends, sharing their persistence, their kindness, and their unwillingness to ever give up. The myths were real. The legends were true. And the galaxy was learning what it meant to have humanity as a friend. In the barracks, Vex lay awake, thinking about everything he had learned. 3 days ago, he had mocked humans as weak and soft. Now he understood the truth. Humans were not weak. They were the opposite of weak. They were persistence made flesh, endurance made real, and tomorrow he would begin training with them. He would learn to push past his limits. He would learn what it meant to never give up. He was afraid, but he was also eager. After all, if humans could do it, why not him? The station grew quiet as everyone settled in for sleep. The humans, exhausted from 3 days of hunting, slept soundly. But even in sleep, they breathed steadily and strong, ready to wake up and keep going. Because that was what humans did. They kept going, always.